Hey guys, just like to start by saying, of course, the recent multiple tragedies in Paris are disturbing and very sad, and terrible losses for the families of all the people that died there, and it's a terrible, terrible thing, of course. It'd be nice to say it's surprising or shocking or something like that, but it's not shocking and it's not surprising, because we're having stuff like this going on all around the world every day at the moment. Well, always. A terribly sad thing. Just a couple of observations that have come from it. First of all, some incredibly stupid comments coming from people from all different directions. So people with all different opinions on it and attitudes towards it. And just incredibly stupid comments sometimes. You know, of course, there's the one side that are the anti-Muslim side that making their endless comments about the Muslims, and because all the extremists all use stuff like this as an excuse to get really carried away and want to throw all the Muslims out of our country, whichever country that is. You know, there's Americans saying that, Australians saying that, Europeans saying that. There's always extremists that go nuts whenever stuff like this happens and use it as an excuse to bring out their hatred. So lots of stupid comments from some of those people, and at the same time lots of stupid comments coming from the people on the other side of the argument as well, or one of the other sides of the argument, where you've got other people saying, I support Muslims. I saw this on Facebook a few times. I support Muslim people, and that these attacks aren't by Islam itself, it's by some minority people, which is all true. And then add to it, I'm not a racist. I support Muslims because I'm not a racist, which keeps saying that a lot, which is an incredibly ignorant comment, because of course Islam isn't a race. Islam is a religion, right? So Muslims aren't a race of people, they're a group of people with the same religion. Incredibly ignorant comment that about. People are so paranoid about racism that they mix it together with all sorts of other bigotry, you know. Incredibly ignorant. So anyway, lots of ignorance flying both sides. Something that keeps coming to mind with all this bullshit is the lack of consistency. That what we really need is to see more consistency in the way that these things are addressed. So all of it. So another thing that keeps coming up recently is, because people use this as an excuse to trot this out as well, ban the burqa. Well, you know, the cover, the hijab, or whatever it's called as well. There's a few different names for the different parts of it. I'm not really sure, but the covering head to toe thing that lots of Muslim ladies do. And a couple of comments about that. First one is that people use these terrorist attacks as excuses to say, let's ban those burqas, right? Now, just a couple of observations. One is, of course, occasionally around the world, someone wearing a burqa will do some act of terrorism, no doubt. But what percentage of the acts of terrorism are being carried out by people wearing burqas? I mean, I've seen some arguments this week where, you know, you don't know if it's a male or a female or a terrorist underneath those clothes. Well, really? Do you know, if you look at me, do you know, I mean, you might guess I'm a male, but do you know if I'm a terrorist or not? I mean, again, an incredibly ignorant comment. And the other thing is, what percentage of terrorist attacks around the world have been carried out by people wearing burqas? I'd suggest it's pretty low. If you want to walk into a French restaurant or a French supermarket or an English supermarket or an Australian supermarket, American supermarket, and carry out a terrorist attack, or shopping centre, or wherever you want to do it, train station, airport, wherever you want to do it, I would suggest that the last thing you're going to do is do it wearing a burqa, because as soon as you walk through the door, you're going to have a whole heap of profiling people look at you straight away, aren't you? It's not the way to blend in and get away with planting an explosive device and walking away, because you're going to be watched, aren't you? Probably, fairly or unfairly. I mean, it's what's going to happen. So I mean, it just strikes me as an incredibly ignorant comment that, you know, you don't know if it's a terrorist underneath those clothes. Well, yeah, okay. Really? You know, you really think that terrorists are going to dress like that to go and plant a bomb? Undoubtedly some have. We know for a fact that some have. In Israel it's happened, and in other places it's happened. But generally no, right? Generally in Western countries, when people carry out these terrorist attacks, they dress like everybody else. You know, the 9/11 guys dressed like everybody else and behaved like everybody else, so they blended in. That's what they do, so they can get away with their shit. They don't turn up wearing hijabs or bloody burqas or whatever. That's ridiculous, right, to even suggest that. But also on that topic, let's look at some consistency. Now, no doubt from a security point of view, now I come from a security background, so I am aware of these sorts of things as well. From a security point of view, sometimes, of course, that could be a problem. Now, let's be consistent. Whether it's a religious garment or whether it's just a fashion garment or whether it's a full face motorcycle helmet, let's be consistent. So if I can wear a full face motorcycle helmet where you don't really know if I'm male or female or terrorist, then a person should be able to wear a burqa. Don't you think? I mean, if we're going to be consistent, we can't apply laws or rules to people that aren't consistent. You can't say that you're not allowed to wear that religious thing, but you're allowed to walk in wearing a full face motorcycle helmet, right? So let's be consistent. So let's say, okay, let's make rules about face coverings. If that's what you want to do, let's make a rule about a face covering. So people have a right, if someone owns a business, and quite often these days we see signs on doors, don't we? Please remove your motorcycle helmet. And there's a good reason for that, is because, you know, it's been used a lot. People walk in wearing motorcycle helmets and commit armed robberies and things. So it's a normal security procedure to have a sign on the door saying, please remove your motorcycle helmet before you enter the bank or the post office or the shop or whatever it is. And that's fair enough. And whoever owns that shop or bank or whatever has a right to do that. So again, consistency. Let's say, okay, in that place, if you're not allowed to wear facial coverings in that place, you're not allowed to wear facial coverings in that place consistently. So that applies to helmets, burqas, or whatever else, of course, right? Seems fair. But if we're in a place where you're allowed to wear your full face motorcycle helmet, walking down the street or in a park or wherever you're allowed to be, why would we have a right to tell the guy that he's allowed, or the girl that she's allowed to wear her full face motorcycle helmet, but that other person's not allowed to wear a piece of material covering their face, because that somehow doesn't, you know, that's not okay. How can we say that? Just because one's a religious orientated thing and one's not. Or masks. I mean, in Japan here, people walk around wearing masks all the time. Masks, hats, scarves. You know, and again, cold climates. Japan in winter, Europe in winter. You've got people getting around that have got sunglasses on, and they've got scarves up around their faces, and they've got hats, you know, warm hats pulled down over. So the end result is the same. If you've got a scarf wrapped up to here, and you've got a woolen hat pulled down to here, and you've got a pair of sunglasses on, what's the difference between that and a burqa? So again, we've got to be consistent. If you're allowed to wear all that shit and get round the place, how can you say someone's not allowed to wear something else just because it happens to have religious connotations for them? Why do we give a shit? You know, why would anyone give a shit? Except for the security argument. Now, if we're going to apply the security argument, it has to be across the board. No facial coverings in this shop, no facial coverings in this shopping centre, no facial coverings in this airport, whatever it is. But outside those areas, if you're allowed to wear the beanie and the scarf and the sunglasses and the full face motorcycle helmet, we've got no right to tell someone they can't wear a piece of material over their face. Why do we have that right? Obviously we don't, do we? Really? So that's a stupid, just banning something because it happens to have a religious connection for that person is obviously not consistent. You know, not consistent. So that's the first example of the non-consistency, or the, you know, where we should be applying consistency. The other one is this Muslim attack thing, this Muslim terrorist attack thing. We have to be consistent. If we're going to label attacks and murders, which is basically the way I see these things, they're a murder. They're a murder. It's a conspiracy by a bunch of people to murder a bunch of other people, right? They're murderers. We've got to look at it from a legal perspective, and consistently, it's a multiple murder and a conspiracy to murder, and that's the law, and that's what we need to carry it out as. And if it's terrorism, which obviously a lot of countries now have terrorist laws. That's fair enough too. It's terrorism, okay? So it's terrorism. And a lot of countries have brought in new laws where terrorism penalties are higher than normal murder penalties. That's fair enough too. Very wise. Very wise. And again, we need to be consistent. So the religion of the people carrying out the attack is irrelevant. You know, why is it that when you get a bunch of nut jobs that happen to be Muslims go around and kill people, that it's a Muslim attack? When you get a bunch of Christians that go around killing people, and Christians are killing people every day, I can't remember seeing a news report anywhere that said Christian terrorist attack or Christian multiple murder. You don't see it, do you? Why? Why is that? Why are people not saying we should ban Christians from our countries because Christians are killing people every day? Why are people not saying that? You know? Again, not being consistent, is it? We need to do one thing or another. Either we need to stop referring to the religion of these people, or we need to refer to the religions of all the people. You know? A multiple murder was carried out by this atheist. You know? If he's an atheist. A multiple murder was carried out by this Christian, if he's a Christian. Or a group of Christians, or whatever. You know? We've got to be consistent. It's not... You know, it's not Muslim, it's not Islam that's carrying out these attacks. It's a bunch of assholes. You know, and they always have a reason. They always have their own reason. In the case of some of these guys, it might be some misguided religious bullshit. In the case of other cases, it might be something else. It might be over territory, or it might be over some other bullshit, you know, some other hatred or some other bullshit that they've got going on. Or they're just plain crazy. And again, to blame all Muslims because a couple of Muslims killed some people, or a few Muslims killed some people, is just as crazy as if we blamed all Christians because some Christians killed some people. And there's lots of Christians killing people. Just this week there was a story on RT about Christians in America saying it's their God-given right to carry guns, which is interesting. Why would God be concerned about people carrying guns? That's a funny thing to say. But again, that's their right to say it. But we don't hear people saying, "Oh, that's a terrible, dangerous thing. These Christians are terrorists. We should ban them from our country," because so many 100 people are killed every day by Christians. So we should ban Christians from our country. It's the same thing. Ridiculous. It's equally ridiculous. So, you know, it needs to be treated consistently. You know, if some people kill people, if they conspire to do it and it falls under some terrorist law, then they need to be brought to justice under those laws, or if it's murder laws or whatever laws in that country are being applied to those people, they need to be applied. If it is a conspiracy that was brought about by someone suggesting they do it, now whether that be Islamic priest, what do they call him, an Islamic religious leader, or whether that just be some Christian nutjob, or whether that just be some random asshole, it doesn't really matter. The religion of the person is irrelevant, and the crime that they committed is what we need to focus on. You know, because what happens is this thing's a rolling up, snowballing thing. That's a never-ending snowball, and this has been the same throughout history. When you get a group of people that blame another group of people for certain behaviours, and it snowballs up. So you get the other extremists that go on about the Muslim terrorists, and they're, you know, we need to ban Muslims from our country, and that just spits out more hatred into the world. And then you get that motivates the nut jobs who happen to be Muslims. That makes them worse, and they spit out more hatred, and the hatred winds up, and you're labelling whole groups of people. It's recruiting people on both sides. That's what it does. There was a terrible story. Remember the guy a year or two ago testified before American Congress, and he lived in the mountains of, it might have been Afghanistan or somewhere, lived in the mountains of somewhere peacefully in a little village, and he said that in his village people used to love America. They used to think America was really cool, and they used to watch TV and movies, and they used to talk about America, and they used to think America was really great. They loved it until the Americans used a drone to drop a bomb on their town because there happened to be a terrorist in the town, and they dropped a bomb to kill the terrorist and killed a whole heap of innocent villages as well, and now that village hates Americans, right? And this is how this stuff winds up. You get some Muslim guy who's just a peaceful Muslim guy and doesn't give a shit about any of this bullshit, you know? And then you start hating on him, and he's living in a society where, you know, like the UK or Australia or America or somewhere, and suddenly he finds himself being hated on because he's Muslim, and then that can develop a sense of defense from him where he does become a nut job and starts killing other people because they're hassling him about him being a Muslim. It winds up, there's two sides to it all, right? It's the same as the Christian people who, you know, who don't want to get involved, and then this battle starts, this war starts of religion, and then they start getting more extreme as well. It winds up and it's spitting hate and violence into the world as it goes. Terrible. You know, we should be doing better than that in the 21st century. We need to just say, as a people, we need to be intolerant of violence and intolerant of people breaking the law. That's what they're doing. It's about the law. You know, all these countries where this violence is taking part have laws. And that's what we need to focus on, consistently applying the law. Ignoring the religion thing or their motivation. I mean, if psychologists or other people want to analyse what their motivations were for their violence, that's fair enough. But it's irrelevant as far as the law's concerned. It doesn't matter. And it's irrelevant as far as the rest of us are concerned. You know, to automatically label a whole group just because a small percentage, the numbers of Muslims in France was huge. There's something about it in the press during the week. There's a huge number of people who are Muslim living in France, and this small group of nut jobs carried out that violence. So to label everybody under the same umbrella is ridiculous. Just as ridiculous as if a couple of Christian dudes in America walk into a school and shoot everybody dead, to label all Christians as nut jobs as a result of that, you know? Because most people who practice their religions, you know, if they want to believe in invisible people in the clouds, well, that's their thing, right? And most people who practice religions usually are decent, good people and take away good things from their religions about loving one another and not killing and not stealing and not doing bad things to other people. That's a positive thing. And that shouldn't matter to the rest of us. We shouldn't care what other people believe, as long as they're not breaking the law. You know, that's all we need to focus on, the consistently applying the law, and the rest of it's irrelevant. You know, which invisible person in the clouds they believe in is their thing. What clothes people choose to wear is their thing. You know, if we need to make laws to keep society safer, then we make them and we apply them consistently. Sorry, no face coverings are allowed to be worn in this airport, or in this post office, or in this bank, or in this shopping centre, or wherever it happens to be. And apply that consistently. Apply it consistently. You know, you could kill people or conspire to kill people or encourage people to kill other people, then if there are laws about that, then those laws need to be applied to you. That's it, across the board. You know, we can't be fairer as societies and as a world society. We can't be fairer than that, can we? Than applying laws and applying laws to people consistently. And if we do that, everyone's going to feel as if they're getting a fair deal. Because at the moment, it's extreme on all sides is extreme. You know, the people that throw out the Muslims are bad, and the other people saying, I love Muslims because I'm not racist. There's so much stupid shit going on with this, around all this. And the other thing is, consistent again, you know, it's great that people are supporting Paris, but how inconsistent is it that such a fuss is made when people die in a Western country to how much fuss is made when thousands of people die in some other country that they don't consider as important. And that happens all the time, every week. You know, hundreds and thousands, hundreds of people or thousands of people are dying in different countries around the world due to violence and due to all sorts of things. And quite often they don't even hardly get mentioned. But when it happens in a Western country, all of a sudden it's a big fuss is made. And again, people dying is a tragic thing. But let's be consistent. If we're going to make such a fuss about people dying in Paris, well, that's a good thing. We should. So we should. And we should make a fuss about it every time someone dies. Whether that's people in Paris dying or people in a village in the mountains of Afghanistan because the Americans have dropped a smart bomb on them or a drone bomb on them and killed them. Whatever it is, wherever it is around the world that people die, we should make an equal, consistent fuss about it. Because that's what it deserves, you know? Consistent. Again, consistent. Because all this extreme, inconsistent, inequitable, overly emotional, overly ridiculous bullshit that goes on is just making it worse. It doesn't make it better. And I've seen some really rational people this week make some really stupid fucking comments about all this. You know, and again, inconsistent, overly emotional, inconsistent. Let's get consistent. Let's expect some consistency. We cannot be fairer than being consistent in the way we apply these things. Anyway, hopefully that's triggered a little bit of rational thought, rational behaviour, some rational comments. More videos coming soon.